The conflict has now gone on for 226 days. That's 226 days of destruction. It's 226 days of Israeli hostages still in chains. It's 226 days that have led to 35,000 Palestinian deaths, and 226 days where the risks of further regional escalation worsen every day. We will keep repeating our call until it happens, that there must now be an immediate ceasefire, as this House supported through Labour's motion and as demanded by the United Nations Security Council resolution. Diplomatic pressure must now go into overdrive to bring the fighting to an end. Labour has been opposed to an Israeli offences in Rafah for months. The UK government should now work with the United States to try to prevent a full-scale Rafah offensive. By being clear, it will assess UK exports and, if the full-scale Rafah offensive goes ahead, join our American allies in suspending weapons or components that could be used in that offensive. When we last met on this subject, I asked the Deputy Foreign Secretary to confirm whether he or the Foreign Secretary has received any assessment, not legal advice, but any assessment or policy advice from Foreign and Commonwealth and Development Office officials that the threshold has already been met. He dodged the question. He didn't answer. So I repeat that question to him today, and the whole House will be interested in his response. Last November in this House, the Deputy Foreign Secretary appeared to row back on Boris Johnson's shameful abandonment of the International Criminal Court, when he said it is not for ministers to seek to state where the ICC has jurisdiction. The Prime Minister followed up in December when he said we are a strong and long-standing supporter of the International Criminal Court. But in his statement today, the government have backtracked, U-turning of one of Britain's most fundamental principles, respect of the rule of law. Labour has been clear throughout this conflict that international law must be upheld, that the independence of international courts must be respected, and that all sides must be accountable for their actions. I asked the Minister very simply, does he agree? Arrest warrants are not a conviction or determination of guilt, but they do reflect the evidence and judgment of the prosecutor about the grounds for individual criminal responsibility. Labour's position is that the decision by the International Criminal Court Chief Prosecutor to apply for arrest warrants is an independent matter for the court and the prosecutor. Does the Minister agree? Labour believes that the International Criminal Court's independence must be upheld and respected, and that it is right that the conduct of all parties is addressed by the court. Does the Minister agree? Labour believes that the focus of politicians should be on achieving an immediate ceasefire to end the war in Gaza, free the hostages, alleviate the humanitarian crisis and create a pathway towards a lasting political solution. Does the Minister agree? And Labour believes that the UK and all parties to the Rome Statute have a legal obligation to comply with orders and warrants issued by the court. Democracies who believe in the rule of law must submit themselves to it. Does the Minister agree? So Labour supports the ICC as a cornerstone of the international legal system that supports allies regardless of the court's focus, whether it is in Ukraine, Sudan, Syria or Gaza. Does the Minister agree? These get to the heart of a simple question. does the Conservative Party, the party of Churchill, who was one of the founders of our international legal framework, does the Conservative Party believe in the international rule of law or not?
Foreign Secretary.
Well, may I start, Mr. Speaker, in response to the Shadow Foreign Secretary by assuring him, in answer to his final question, that the answer from the government, as he would expect, is yes. And I think it's worth stating that if one looks carefully at his high-flown oratory this afternoon, we do not see very much of a distinction between the position of His Majesty's opposition and the government. And as I will set out, Mr. Speaker, now he starts off by saying that this is day 226 of the incarceration of the hostages, of the destruction that has taken place, and of the risks of escalation. And I completely agree with what he says, and he says that the diplomatic pressure must rise. I can tell him that the diplomatic pressure is intense on all counts and in all places, and he says we must work closely with the United States of America. Let me assure him that we are working intensively and closely with the United States. He asks me about the advice we receive and suggests that I dodged the question on the earlier occasion. Mr. Speaker, I certainly had no intention of doing so, and I can tell him that we receive all sorts of advice from all sorts of places, but we do not, as is the custom and practice, as he knows well, disclose our legal advice, but we are always careful to follow it meticulously. And that is my answer to his question. He asks, is it a matter for the court acting independently? And my answer again is, of course it is. But we don't necessarily have to stay silent in our view on what the court is doing, and we certainly are not. And for his question about the letter from a former Prime Minister, as we have said from the outset, we do not think the ICC has jurisdiction in this case. The UK has not recognised Palestine as a state, and Israel is not a state party to the Rome Statute. But as I say, Mr. Speaker, I think if we split away some of what he said today and the oratory which he customarily displays in this place, we see that the position of the opposition front bench and the government remains very closely aligned.